welcome to EnglishVibesHub, the go-to channel for improving your English conversation skills. I'm Emma, and I'm excited to be here today with Liam to discuss a fascinating topic that can elevate your everyday conversations: navigating idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms. Today, we're going to dive into the world of phrases that will make your English sound more natural and engaging.
That's right, Emma. Using idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms can be a bit tricky for non-native English speakers, but with practice, it can really make a difference in how fluent and natural you sound. I mean, think about it when you're watching a movie or listening to a podcast, and you hear someone say, "It's raining cats and dogs," you know exactly what they mean, even though it's not literal. It's a fun way to add flavor to your language.
Exactly, and that's a great example, Liam. "It's raining cats and dogs" is an idiom that means raining very heavily. It's not meant to be taken literally, of course. So, let's start with a couple of phrasal verbs that are commonly used in everyday conversations. For instance, pick up can have several meanings depending on the context. You can pick up something from the floor, or you can pick up a new skill. Can you think of a time when you had to pick up a new habit or skill, Liam?
Actually, yes. When I moved to a new city, I had to pick up the habit of using public transport since I didn't have a car. It was a bit challenging at first, but once I got the hang of it, it was easy. And that's a great point about phrasal verbs, Emma. Their meanings can be quite different from the literal meanings of the individual words. Another example could be get on, which can mean to board a bus or train, or it can mean to have a good relationship with someone.
That's a fantastic example, Liam. The versatility of these expressions is what makes them so interesting and useful. Let's consider another idiom, cost an arm and a leg. This means something is very expensive. For instance, I wanted to buy that new smartphone, but it costs an arm and a leg, so I decided to wait for a sale. It's a fun way to express that something is pricey without saying it directly.
I love that one, Emma. And it's true, some things can be so expensive that they feel like they're worth more than they actually are. Speaking of which, have you ever heard the idiom break a leg? It's often used to wish someone good luck, especially before a performance or a challenging situation. It's the opposite of what it literally means, which makes it quite unique and memorable.
Yes, break a leg is a classic. And it's a great example of how idioms can be used in various contexts to add a layer of depth and cultural understanding to our conversations. Using these expressions can make you sound more fluent and can help you connect better with native speakers. Let's talk about call it a day. This means to stop what you're doing because you're tired or it's late, or maybe because you've decided you've done enough for the day.
That's a useful one, Emma. I often find myself saying that when I've been working on a project for hours and I feel like I'm not making any progress. It's a polite way to say you're done with something without feeling like you've given up. And it brings up an interesting point about the importance of knowing when to stop and take a break. Maybe we can explore more about time management and productivity in another episode.
That sounds like a great idea, Liam. Time management is a skill that everyone could improve on, and there are plenty of idiomatic expressions related to it. For now, let's keep focusing on how to effectively use these expressions in our conversations. Do you have any favorite idioms or phrasal verbs that you like to use, Liam?
Well, Emma, I've always been fond of beat around the bush. It means to avoid talking directly or clearly about something. I think it's because I've found myself in situations where I've had to do that, unintentionally, of course. But it's a great phrase to know when you're trying to describe someone who's not being straightforward without accusing them of lying.
That's a good one, Liam. And it's a great reminder that idioms can be used to describe behaviors or actions in a more nuanced way. Beat around the bush is definitely a phrase that can help you sound more natural when discussing sensitive topics. Let's think about how we can use these expressions in real-life scenarios to make our conversations more engaging and interesting.
For sure, Emma. One scenario that comes to mind is when you're at a party and someone asks you about a movie you haven't seen. Instead of saying you haven't seen it, you could say, "I've been meaning to get around to it," which is a polite way of admitting you haven't had the time or interest yet. It's all about choosing the right expressions to fit the context of the conversation.
Exactly, Liam. The key is to understand the context and to choose expressions that fit naturally into what you're trying to communicate. And practice, of course, is essential. The more you practice using these expressions, the more comfortable you'll become with them, and the more naturally they'll fit into your conversations. Let's explore more examples and scenarios where these expressions can be particularly useful.
I think a good example is when you're trying to give advice to a friend. Instead of saying something direct like you should do this, you could say, I'd take it with a grain of salt, which means to be cautious or skeptical about something. It's a softer way to express your opinion without coming across as too pushy or controlling.
That's a great point, Liam. Using idioms and colloquialisms can help soften the tone of your advice or opinions, making them more palatable to the listener. And it's also about being considerate of the other person's feelings and perspective. When you use expressions like take it with a grain of salt, you're showing that you respect their ability to make their own decisions.
Respect is a big part of effective communication, Emma, and using the right idiomatic expressions can convey that respect in a way that straightforward language sometimes can't. It's all about creating a connection with the person you're talking to and making sure your message is received in the way you intend it to be.
Well said, Liam. Creating that connection is what it's all about. And we're just getting started on this journey of exploring idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms. There's so much more to discuss, from the nuances of different phrases to how they can be used in various contexts to enhance our conversations.
I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation, Emma. There are so many interesting aspects to delve into, and I'm sure our audience is eager to learn more about how they can incorporate these expressions into their daily conversations. Maybe we can talk about some common mistakes people make when trying to use idioms and how to avoid them.
That's a fantastic idea, Liam. Understanding where people often go wrong can be just as valuable as learning the expressions themselves. It's about being aware of the potential pitfalls and how to navigate them successfully. Let's keep the conversation going and see where it takes us.
I think that's what makes learning about idiomatic expressions so engaging, Emma. It's not just about memorizing phrases, it's about understanding the culture and the nuances of the language. And when you start to get it, it's incredibly rewarding. You start to feel like you're really communicating on a deeper level with others.
That's the goal, isn't it? To be able to communicate effectively and connect with others on a meaningful level. And it's a journey, not a destination. The more we learn and practice, the more comfortable we become with using these expressions in our everyday conversations. Let's keep exploring and see how far we can take it.
Definitely, Emma, and I think our audience is going to really enjoy this journey with us. We're just getting started, and there's so much more to come. I'm excited to see where our conversation takes us next and how we can help our viewers improve their English conversation skills.
Me too, Liam. It's going to be a fun and informative ride. And as we continue, we'll make sure to provide plenty of examples and scenarios to help illustrate how these expressions can be used in real life. So stay tuned, everyone, as we dive deeper into the world of idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms.
And don't forget, the key to mastering these expressions is to practice, practice, practice. Try to use them in your own conversations, even if it feels a bit awkward at first. The more you practice, the more natural it will become. And who knows, you might just find yourself in the swing of things in no time.
In the swing of things is a great idiom to end this part of our conversation on, Liam. It means to be doing something with ease and confidence, which is exactly what we're aiming for with our English conversation skills. Let's keep moving forward and see how we can help our viewers achieve that level of confidence with idiomatic expressions.
Sounds like a plan, Emma. And I think we've covered some really useful ground so far, but there's still a lot to explore, and I'm excited to see where our conversation goes from here. Let's keep the discussion going and delve into even more fascinating aspects of idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms. I'd love to dive deeper into how we can use idiomatic expressions in everyday conversations, Emma. You know, I was at a coffee shop the other day, and I overheard someone say, "It's raining cats and dogs outside." It made me think about how we use such expressions to add flavor to our conversations.
That's a great example, Liam. Raining cats and dogs is a classic idiom that means raining very heavily. It's a fun way to describe the weather instead of just saying it's raining a lot. And it's a good reminder that using idioms can make our conversations more engaging and interesting for the listener.
Exactly, and it's not just about the weather. I've noticed that when we're discussing plans, people often say, "Let's touch base soon." What does that mean exactly?
When someone says, "Let's touch base," it means they want to catch up or talk to you again soon, usually to discuss something specific. It's a way of saying, I want to stay in touch and follow up on this topic later. It's a very common expression in both personal and professional settings.
That makes sense. I've also come across the phrase, to cut to the chase. Can you explain that one?
Absolutely. To cut to the chase means to get to the point or the most interesting part of a conversation without wasting time on unnecessary details. It originated from film editing, where cut to the chase meant to skip unnecessary parts of a scene and get to the exciting chase scene. Now, it's used in everyday conversation to ask someone to be more direct and get to the main point.
I see, so it's about being more concise and direct. What about the phrase, to give someone the cold shoulder? How does that fit into our conversations?
To give someone the cold shoulder means to deliberately ignore or show indifference to someone. It's an idiom used to describe when someone is being aloof or unfriendly on purpose, often because they are upset or angry with the other person. It's a way of expressing displeasure without directly confronting the issue.
I've experienced that before, unfortunately. It's not a great feeling, but using these idioms can really help us navigate complex social situations, can't they?
Definitely, Liam. And I think it's also important to understand the context in which these idioms are used. For instance, if someone says, let's call it a day, it means they want to stop what they're doing and go home, usually because they're tired or it's late. But if you're not familiar with this idiom, you might think they're suggesting quitting something entirely.
That's a good point. Context is key when it comes to understanding and using idiomatic expressions. I've found that when I'm in a conversation and someone uses an idiom I'm not familiar with, it can be a bit confusing. But at the same time, it's a great opportunity to learn something new.
Learning idioms is a continuous process, and it's part of what makes language so dynamic and interesting. Let's do a role play to practice using some of these expressions in context. Are you up for it?
Sounds like fun. What scenario should we use for our role play?
Let's say we're planning a party, and we need to discuss the details. We can use some of the idioms we've talked about to make the conversation more realistic and engaging.
I'll start. Hey Emma, I was thinking we could have the party at my place. But first, let's touch base with the others to see what they think.
That's a great idea, Liam. But before we do that, let's cut to the chase and decide on a date. We don't want to leave it until the last minute and have to rush everything.
Right, let's see. How about next Saturday? And we should probably give them a heads up so they can clear their schedules. I don't want anyone to give us the cold shoulder because we didn't give them enough notice.
Next Saturday sounds perfect, and I agree we should give them plenty of notice. Now, let's talk about the party theme. I was thinking we could do something outdoors, but it's been raining cats and dogs all week. Maybe we should have a backup plan.
That's a good point. We don't want the weather to dampen the mood. Let's decide on a theme and then we can call it a day. We can finalize the details later.
I like the sound of that. And speaking of finalizing details, we should also make sure to follow up with everyone after the party to thank them for coming. It's always nice to show our appreciation and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. It's those little touches that make a difference. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground with our role play. It's been really helpful in seeing how these idioms can be used in a natural conversation.
I completely agree. Role plays are a great way to practice using idiomatic expressions in context. And it's not just about the expressions themselves, but also about understanding the nuances of conversation and how to respond appropriately.
Now that we've explored using idioms in planning a party, I'm curious to know more about how they're used in other everyday situations. Do you have any stories or examples of times when using an idiom really helped in a conversation?
Actually, I do. I was traveling once and met someone who was learning English. We were trying to communicate, but there was a bit of a language barrier. I used the idiom to break the ice to start a conversation, and it really helped us connect and understand each other better.
That's a wonderful story, Emma. Using idioms can indeed help break down barriers and create a more welcoming atmosphere in conversations. I've had similar experiences where using the right idiom at the right time has completely turned a conversation around.
It's amazing how much of a difference it can make, isn't it? And it's not just about the idioms themselves, but also about being mindful of our audience and adjusting our language accordingly. Being able to use idioms effectively is a skill that can really enhance our communication skills.
I couldn't agree more, Emma. It's a skill that takes practice, but it's definitely worth it. And I think that's what makes learning and using idiomatic expressions so rewarding. It's a continuous process of discovery and improvement.
Well, I think we've made some great points today, Liam. And I'm excited to continue this conversation in our next segment, where we can delve even deeper into the world of idioms and explore more ways to use them in our everyday conversations.
I'm glad we're moving on to the next part of our conversation, Emma. I think our viewers are really going to benefit from the examples we're about to share. Let's dive right in and explore some more idiomatic expressions that can help take their conversations to the next level.
Absolutely, Liam. One of my favorite idioms to use in everyday conversations is to touch base. It means to get in touch with someone, usually to discuss something or to check in and see how they're doing. For instance, you might say, "I'll touch base with you next week to see how your project is going."
That's a great one, Emma. I use that all the time, especially with my colleagues. Another one I find really useful is to be on the same page. This means that people have a shared understanding or agreement about something. So if you're discussing a plan with someone, you might say, "Just to make sure we're on the same page, let's review the details one more time."
Exactly, Liam. Being on the same page is crucial for effective communication. Now, let's talk about to give someone the cold shoulder. This idiom means to deliberately ignore or show indifference to someone. For example, if someone is being rude to you, you might decide to give them the cold shoulder and not engage with them.
That's a good point, Emma. Sometimes, giving someone the cold shoulder is the best way to handle a difficult situation. Another idiom that I think is really useful is to cut to the chase. This means to get to the point or the most interesting part of a conversation without wasting time on unnecessary details. So if someone is rambling on and you want them to get to the point, you might say, "Let's cut to the chase. What's the main issue here?"
I love that one, Liam. It's so helpful in meetings or when you're trying to have a productive conversation. And finally, let's talk about to rain on someone's parade. This means to spoil or ruin someone's plans or event. For example, if your friend is excited about a party and you tell them that the weather forecast says it's going to rain, you might be raining on their parade.
Yes, no one likes a party pooper, Emma, but it's good to know how to express that in a polite way. I think these idioms are going to be really helpful for our viewers to learn and practice.
Definitely, Liam. And I hope our viewers have been taking notes and practicing along with us throughout this series. We've covered a lot of ground, from basic introductions to more complex idiomatic expressions.
It's been a pleasure exploring the world of idioms with you, Emma, and I'm sure our viewers will continue to benefit from these conversations long after this series is over.
Well, Liam, it looks like we've reached the end of our journey through everyday conversations. I hope our viewers have enjoyed this series as much as we have, and that they'll continue to join us on EnglishVibesHub for more exciting content.
Thanks for tuning in to this series on navigating everyday conversations, everyone. If you've enjoyed our content, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, EnglishVibesHub, for more educational and entertaining English language lessons.
And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all our latest videos. We'll see you in the next one, and thanks again for being part of the EnglishVibesHub community.